All right, so it's budget time. End of the month is here. You look at close out the month, and you've got all sorts of adjustments and credits that need to be applied. You need to put in some narratives, some comments around what's going on inside your business, and you're looking for some way to do this. Inside of Power BI, you got all this great stuff in your reports, but you've got no way to write it back into the system. Well, up until now, you've had a real problem with this. You're just kind of like SOL. But that's until Acterys. Martin Kratky is here. He's going to show us how we can do this right now. I'm excited about it. Let's get to it. Okay. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to be getting into this. The solution that Acterys has solves some real challenges that I've had, that I've been trying to find different ways to address and sort out. So I'm super excited to share this with you. I'm going to be introducing, let's cut over. Hey, Martin, welcome to the live stream. How are you doing today?
Welcome everyone from a cold and wintry Australia. You will probably be laughing because winter means 40 degrees Fahrenheit for us, but still, for us, it feels very cold. My name is Martin Kratky. I'm one of the founders of Acterys, and I'm really excited to be with you today, Chris.
Oh, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and show me and all of the viewers what Acterys has. Frankly, I think this is a great solution. Can you give me and everyone who's watching just a little bit of a background as to how Acterys got started? Like, why did you decide to form this company?
So I've been working in the planning and analytics industry for the last 20 years. So I've worked with most of the major solutions in that space, predominantly focusing on implementing these solutions. And they used to be typically very expensive projects. And this is software that, it starts at hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in 2015, with a few factors, particularly the cloud and Power BI, we came across Power BI very early, and we saw the opportunity that you could do something better. So you could provide these pretty advanced planning, modeling capabilities in a much quicker way and combined with some awesome analytics. And that was the driver for us to start Acterys. So on the one hand, to help organizations to get the Power BI power on the road quicker, where we completely automate solutions for particular source systems. So for the major cloud solutions, particularly accounting systems, CRM systems. So to allow them to pretty much with a switch of a button, build automatically the right data model, which is Azure SQL, so a proper data warehouse model. And then all the Power BI components on top of that. And this typically combined with our planning engine, so that covers any aspect of planning, from financial planning, operational planning, driver-based, rolling forecasts, so all these aspects, and combine the Power BI analysis power, the ease of use, with pretty powerful planning capabilities.
Wow, that is, frankly, that makes a ton of sense. Can you, do you have any slides to kind of walk us through how this works and how you integrate into a solution?
Absolutely. I'll share my screen, Chris. Let me know when you can see it.
I'm good. Awesome.
Perfect. Very quickly, I will not bother you for too long with slides, but just to set the stage. So we typically help organizations to streamline existing processes. What we see out there, particularly around planning and forecasting, are very manual processes, often based on spreadsheets, where people, very intelligent, smart people, waste a lot of time maintaining spreadsheets and being involved in processes that are not very effective. So that's one side. The other side, what we see at the moment is extremely fast-changing environments. So I don't know, you probably have this in the US as well. We have major challenges here with energy prices. Suddenly, from one day to the other, you have to deal with energy prices that are 50% higher. You have supply chain issues, and you want to be prepared. So you want to see, okay, if that happens, what does this mean for my business, and what can I do to address this? And so provide an environment where you can simulate these factors extremely quickly. And so I've mentioned already all the issues. Historically, these things were, you had silo solution. You had one tool for data warehousing, another tool for dashboarding, another tool for planning, another tool for report writing. Our aim is to unify all these aspects on a single platform, and on the leading analytics platform which Microsoft provides. So essentially what we're doing is we cover the entire range of the ecosystem. So on the one hand, we either completely automate the data model generation. So for these systems, we allow users to add, for example, as many companies as they have running on these systems. So they have, I don't know, a company that's using NetSuite accounting system. It's a global group. They have one company that's using NetSuite. They have another company that's using QuickBooks, another company that's using Xero. And it's typically, if you have these situations or if you acquire companies, it becomes very cumbersome to get this all into a single environment. And so what we are doing there, pretty much at a click, the users can connect with these source systems, and it automatically builds, our solution builds automatically the right data model in either Azure SQL, which is now also the platform for data marts, which is something that we will support as soon as the programmability is there. So you have your data in the perfectly suited enterprise-grade data mart or data warehouse environment. And then on top of this, we're allowing users to do the modeling. So they completely control the model. They can change the model. So for example, for finance people, they want to change the mapping. They want to map now the different accounts and the different source systems to a general standard. They want to build a new model where they add dimensions to it. And this is what we are providing in our modeling environment. And then all these models, alongside the planning capabilities, are then available in their favorite environments, in particular Power BI, but equally Excel. And we also have an API, so you can integrate our functionality in any system. So just to get to a bit more interesting side of things. So the way it works is we have a cloud-based software as a service application, which takes you 2 minutes to sign up. So you sign up, you get this environment, and it's typically wizard driven, so you just go through the steps. And then you can add either one of these systems here completely automatically. So you just push a button and say, I want to add my QuickBooks company, I want to add my NetSuite company. And this then automatically creates the data warehouse and also the ongoing maintenance. It automatically loads all the data into the system. And then also provides you with a optimal Power BI environment. So you see here, I've added my companies here. So I have all the companies that I've added to the environment here available with all the Power BI functionality. And with the Power BI functionality, we're adding 8 Power BI custom visuals. So you see here, for example, for variance analysis, you see one here for financial reporting, where the users get typically needed functionality that is not available directly in Power BI. So for example, from a reporting perspective here, with our financial reporting visual, you can very easily define your own calculations. So similar to an Excel environment, you just put in, I want to have a calculation here for the gross margin. I want to have a calculation here for my EBIT. And the only thing you have to do is you just go into edit mode, click on edit, and you see here now the calculations. And if I want to add a new one, I just say, I want a calculation after this. I want to calculate the relative gross margin. And the relative gross margin is the direct cost. In this case, it's plus because the direct costs are already negative, so plus revenue. And I want to format them in a percentage style. And so you immediately have the calculation in there, everything formatted correctly, and immediately available to also calculating extremely fast. So if you do this in DAX on the one hand, of course, it will take you a long time to build the calculation. In some cases, it might not even be possible. So to have these different kind of formatings in a report is typically quite challenging. And even if you have it with DAX calculation, this will typically get very slow. So this will take, depending on the complexity, but this could take minutes. So we have customers where these things took 5 minutes with DAX calculations. In our case, this renders directly in the visual. So it does this on a summary basis and is extremely fast. And so Martin, this is what our customers, sorry.
Oh, just a question on this. So this is a full-blown Power BI. This is an embedded Power BI solution where I can go in and anything I could expect to do in Power BI I can do inside of here?
Exactly. So this is actually not even embedded. So what we typically allowed, we could do embedded as well, but in the end, typically the starting point is a Power BI template app. So you just go
running
to
in
app
my
source.
Power BI environment. It's
exactly.
I don't have to worry about data leaving my space, right?
Exactly. Even with all the data side of things, so you can configure this. So on the one hand, we provide our customers with an Azure environment, Azure SQL environment. This comes with the subscription. But if you're not happy with this, you have the option to use your own Azure tenant, or to use even your own on-premise data center. We have some big enterprise customers. They are not big fans of the cloud. They want to have everything on-premise. So everything that you've seen here also works completely on-premise. So you can install our model application on-premise. You can run, obviously, the Power BI visuals in report server in Power BI. So all these things are possible also completely on-premise.
Oh, that's amazing. Fernando had asked a question. He was, he has your solution installed. He was having some problems to configure the write back capabilities. What support options does Acterys have for customers who have questions and have challenges?
So we have support teams all over the world. And then we also have, for anyone that's interested, and this doesn't even have any obligation, so you don't have to buy the software. We aim to allow our customers really to test things, to make sure they work. And we have a program called Fast Start, where we sit together with the customer or the prospective customers and say, okay, what are your requirements? And then we build a solution together with them, which is already a form of training. And then at the end of the session, which can last between 1 day to 4 days, depending on the complexity, in some cases it's finished. So whatever the requirements were, they're finished in this time frame. In other cases, at least we can give the prospective customer an exact idea what will be the steps to implement the project, what's the investment involved from a software perspective, from a consulting perspective, and they have the confidence they have something tangible that's working, that this what we're proposing really works, and they get a good idea what will the full project entail. And this can either be done with us, or these days mostly with our partners. We have at the moment 40 partners across the globe, typically value-added resellers, ISVs, consulting companies that have a good experience with the Microsoft Data Platform. And they run these workshops with our clients, which also means you have somebody close by you. In addition to our support teams, we have support centers in the US and Asia Pacific and Europe. So they're always available for you. But then we also have a large partner network that can also assist our customers.
That's fantastic. And maybe I buried the lead here, but because you were just showing us how you can create a measure on there. I think I jumped. I'm so excited to talk about the write back capabilities. Can you show me how and where I would go to write something back? An example
Absolutely.
of that? Awesome.
And I will also show you how we set it up, because it's really straightforward and easy. So if you know Power BI, you know how our solution works. So this is a bit of an example. This is a quite comprehensive one where we cover all these different planning aspects. So, capacity planning, capital expenditure, demand planning, driver-based, ESG, which is a new one for environmental, society, and governance, financial planning, HR, operations, project, and rolling forecasts. So here the user, in this case, I'm an admin user, so I get everything. Normally, this would be changing depending on the user. So for example, the user in the US would only see the items that he's supposed to be planning for or that he's involved in. They can see exactly a status, where is this planning step, and they can directly jump to the detailed plans. If I, for example, want to do the driver-based planning, I can directly jump there. And I see here now, this is in the end just a normal Power BI report. If I go to edit mode, you will see this is just Power BI. The only difference is we have now here 8 of our Power BI custom visuals that come with our product that give you now a variety of planning capabilities. And so here we cover a few. So this is a typical driver-based planning screen where the users can now simulate. So they can create new scenarios, they can do the data management, they copy data from one place to another. So for example, I want to now create a new forecast where I copy data from this scenario to another scenario, or just change it. And here I can just click on edit, and now say this is the plan for the quantity. At the moment, I've got 5,255 units planned. In comparison to my benchmark, this is 7% above. And now I can immediately start my planning by just dragging and dropping here on this line and putting in, my new assumptions. And if I'm happy with them, I can save them and immediately see, how does this affect my total sales, my gross margin. I have a few assumptions here for other drivers like tariff changes, currency rate changes, and then also a combination of our other visuals. So this is our matrix visual.
Hang on,
which allows you to
hang on a second, Martin. I think you just did something that was really amazing right there. Can you go back to that line chart and where you drag that down? And are you actually adjusting your plan right there? Does that write and retain that value someplace? Yes.
Yes. So this is not all. So if I save this is written back into the central database. So in our case, users are working with a central database. So you saw how quick this was. It just took a few seconds. It looked simple. But what happened here, and this shows the power of our engine, we wrote back thousands of data points into the database. And this is just a normal standard SQL database. So you don't have to deal with another exotic storage platform. This is standard SQL. So IT loves us because we fit into the existing governance. We have, all the security policies. We have the user rights already, already typically in place because we support Active Directory and Microsoft accounts. And so this just wrote a few thousand records into the database and in real time. So if you're now looking at the same plan on the other side of the world, you will see exactly the same data.
So you're telling me, and correct me if I'm wrong here. So if I'm responsible for this plan and I have edit permissions on this, I could go and make adjustments on it. But a peer of mine who's not responsible, but just maybe has read access to this, they would see that change in real time?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So in our case, the administration works pretty much the same as in Power BI. The only thing that's different is that we are taking the security rights, the write-back rights into account. So we have a wizard that allows you to set up the write-back rights in the same way as you set RLS in Power BI. So you can say, for the forecast scenario, Chris can change the data for the current year 2022, but he's not allowed to do anything else. So these things an admin can very easily set up. And then we also have the audit trail. So you want to be in control what's going on here. So, and you can either expose this through the modeler, or you can expose it directly in Power BI, because in the end, everything that you see is just a relational table. So you have this relational table. That's a fairly large one. That's why it takes a few seconds to load. But I can now directly in Power BI filter on a particular user, on a particular model, and see, you know, all the transactions that happen. So I can see, for example, here, this user changed the value in 2020 in January for these details from X to Y. So you have complete control what's going on, and an audit trail, like things that happen in Excel where you accidentally override functions, or you make an entry that you didn't intend to. Here you have total transparency, and at least you can see, you know, who did it, when did it happen, and you have transparency.
Wow. Something on the screen has provoked a question for me. You switched. I saw bulk upload.
Go back.
Can I bulk upload a whole bunch of changes? Like if I've sat down with Excel and I've laid everything out, and I've spent days trying to line up these projections across all my different thousands of product lines and thousands of different things. Can I upload that into here?
Yes, absolutely. So maybe just to finalize, so you can see here, these are the user rights. So here an admin can control all the user rights. So I can see for this particular model, this user, and then those are the rights. And you can see they can be simple, where I say, okay, this group can change the budget scenario, or it can be dynamic. So you can even, similar to RLS, define dynamic access right rules, for example, for workflows. You know, if somebody has submitted, then they can't change it anymore, and have dynamic user rights. But coming back to your question, so we have a variety of import options. So one option is, let's say, for example, you have an existing Power BI model, and this could be Dynamics, SAP, whatever you have in Power BI. We have a tool, which is an external tool called Power BI Sync. You can install it in a minute, and that allows you to load the data either directly from Power BI Desktop or from the Power BI service immediately into the data mart. So just click here on Fetch Tables. You select, you know, whatever the components are that you want to make available for planning. So, for example, the main accounts in Dynamics here. So you see now it's getting the data. So you can see this is my, in this case, account dimensions. And then with one click, you can turn it into a write-enabled model. So you can say, okay, this is now an Acterys dimension or an Acterys model. Model in the end means star schema data warehouse. So this would be the dimension table, and this would be the fact table if you want to load the data. And so the beauty is now you have all the transformation capabilities that Power BI gives you, the ease of use. You know, you want to filter the data, you want to transform it. But then you have this available immediately with all the planning capabilities. So I can go to my model. So I've, for example, just moved the my dimension into the data mart. And then I have now all the editing capabilities here. So if I open up now the dimension, so this is the dimension that I've just exposed from Power BI to the data model. So this is similar to, in the end, it's the same. It's the new Power BI data mart. So you have a proper enterprise-grade data mart technology, but you give the users now in a controlled way the option to edit everything. So here, this is now what I've just moved to the model, but I have now the option to edit everything directly here. So, you know, I can change the mappings, I can add new columns, I can remove columns, all these items. and also in a controlled fashion. So you have validations here. So for example, in this case, we call these linked columns. So as opposed to having free text entry, the user can only choose from what I want him to use. So this is another dimension that I can easily maintain, where I just maintain, what are the account groups. And then if I want to change this now to a different class, I can just select this here, save it. And this has now changed the model. And if I'm, in Power BI, this will automatically adapt and show me the correct data for every user in the system. So as we're working with this single version of the truth proposition, a change will automatically flow through to every user on the system, and not just in Power BI, but equally in Excel. So we have everything that you saw here before also directly running in Excel. We have an Excel add-in where the users can do all these things directly in Excel as well.
Hang on one second, Martin. That was amazing. Can we take a step back to you? You're in and you're editing a table, and I've got a slew of questions around this. All right.
Certainly.
So as a well, I don't know if I was ever really a good DBA, but at one point in time, people trusted me to administer databases. You showed me the ability to go in and delete columns. That got me a little scared, a little nervous there. How much control and granular control do we have around that? And then if they do that, does it actually change things on the backend database? Is it just at the visual layer? Describe for me how this is managed, how we can make this work. Especially if consider, let's say I work at a place that's large and I've got, let's say, 50 people who will be, doing these same types of activities. How do we work in a, cohesive environment when, one guy thinks the account table should only have 10 columns and another guy thinks the account table should have 500 columns? Help me with this.
Yeah, so as I showed you before, everything is restricted by user rights. So for example, most of your users probably will not even have access rights to this. So we have different user type roles where, for example, you have a planner user. The planner users can only, do whatever I showed you before. They can, enter planning scenarios. I want to have a new price from this point to that point, and I can only do this for my product group, but nothing else. So they potentially have no modeling rights. But then you have users that have the modeling rights. They can do these things. What we, of course, also have to keep in mind, we are working with a data mart. So this is typically an abstraction layer from the source system. So you wouldn't, change your Dynamics environment or your ERP environment. You work in the data mart. And all this is restricted by the user. So, and you have two options. So we have also the option to just hide things. So for example, if users, they don't want to see these columns, they're physically still there, but when they're working with them, they will only see what they saw. But there is also the option to really physically delete it in the data model. So if you really want to, for example, delete a column, I could now really physically delete this column if I know what I'm doing and if I have the user rights.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. No. This is great. We just have questions coming in the chat. Fernando is asking about, like, how do you go back from the data mart up into prod? I don't think that Acterys doesn't do any of that, right? That if that needed to happen, right, changing the source system, that'd be something we'd have to manage separately, correct?
Yeah, not really. So we support multi-database environment. So you can see here at the top, you can have multiple data mart environments. So our big customers like, I don't know, Puma, Heineken, and so on, they have exactly this situation. They have dev environments, they have production environments, and the users can very quickly switch between these environments. So they can do, their tests and new features and new models. They can do this in the dev environment. And once they're ready, deploy it to production. So we cater for these enterprise requirements where they can handle different types of production and development environments.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think I had the items that I good. Yes, keep going. That made sense to me.
Cool. So I just quickly wanted to show you a few things here. So this was driver-based planning, but it might be interesting for the audience to see how do you get there. And to configure this is for a Power BI user really straightforward. So you see in the end what we built in the background. So we automatically built a proper data mart environment that handles all the complexities. So for example, handling IDs so that a data mart works effectively. You want it to work on integer IDs where the relationships are on that, which means it's extremely fast. And then we're doing other things like, we're doing the write back operations in memory, which allows us to handle, tables with millions, potentially billions of rows extremely fast. So all these changes, we can write back millions of transactions in seconds. So, but all this happens in the background. You don't want to bother the user with it. So when the user, for example, adds a new account here, or this will all happen automatically, or builds a new model. So to build a new model in Acterys is very easy. Just say, here, I have a new model that's called Chris. And Chris wants to use team account in the model. They want to use the scenario dimension, and they want to use the sales reps. And that would automatically create a new model, which is in the end a relational fact table. Everything perfectly finished and immediately available for the users to do their write back and planning and editing on. So this is how you build the models from scratch. If you don't have an automated connector that we provide, if you're not using one of those. And so once you have your data mart, you just take one of our 8 custom visuals, which is very easy, openly available on App Store. So if you look for Acterys, you get all these visuals. So either the visuals or our end-to-end solutions, for example, for a particular accounting system, for inventory system, NetSuite. So you just take this, which is a template app, and then you automatically deploy it into your Power BI tenant. Or you take the 8 visuals. And so once you have your visual, you see here, this is we call this visual planning, Acterys visual planning. This was the ability to do the planning visually with a lot of special things, like I could lock in the target and say, but I want to lock in the target, but still change this. You can see everything else changed to get to the target. And then, so the only thing you do is the model that we've generated, you just drag and drop the items that you want to use. So here I want to use my sales data, which is in this sales model, which is essentially the data mart fact table. So I want to use the value column, which has the actual value, put it into the value column in the visual, and then you just put in the other dimensions. So here I want to compare it with my units from the prior year, and I want to have a drill down from calendar year to year month. So you see here we also support all the Power BI features like drill up, drill down. So you just define the hierarchy as you need it, and off you go. Then you immediately can do your planning with all the capabilities. And same with the matrix. So here you have the matrix. I want to have the products by, again, calendar year and month. We also do something that Power BI doesn't do out of the box. You have a drill down directly in the column. So I can drill down from a higher level to a lower level directly in the column. And then you just do all your editing here. So you just enter the data as you need it with all the capabilities that we provide. So you can either do this by shortcuts, where you just put in, the shortcut, I want to add something, I want to do relative increase, I want to repeat an entry. So all these things you can do directly here.
Sure. Now, okay, so I go in and I enrich my data. I put in these overrides. I put in all this additional stuff. But this is in a data mart, right? And so I've got my central repository that drives our business and has everything, that is, it's my Synapse data warehouse, right? This would be in a data mart that's a derivative of that. Do you have any mechanism of getting this data back up into my Synapse data warehouse, or is that a custom build from?
No. I have to be honest, signups is at the moment not directly supported, but we're working on it. It's not yet deployed.
Okay.
But so you see here with our, so we have this solution that I showed before. This is this Power BI external tool called Power BI Sync. So you see here that's the Power BI Sync tool, and here you can set up profiles. And so the profiles include, all your settings and the environments that you have. So what we already support out of the box, or what's already deployed, is Snowflake. So you can automatically synchronize anything in Power BI with Snowflake, and it will be similar to Synapse. From a write-back perspective, as we are doing concurrent write-back, Synapse is not built for that. So you can't write back directly into Synapse because we have to deal with, thousands of people writing back at the same time in real time. Synapse is not built for that and can't handle that. So we always use SQL Server, Azure SQL Server, or Microsoft SQL Server. But you already have options that SQL Server provides where you can synchronize with Synapse. So at the moment, even though we don't have it as a click of a button authentication, and this will come for Synapse, equally for Dataverse, you have the option to synchronize it with Power BI Sync already for Snowflake, where you have a scheduler that does this all completely automatically. So it runs every hour and synchronizes your SQL Server model with the Snowflake model, and soon also with the Synapse model.
Oh, that's fantastic. And are you taking advantage of the new Synapse Sync, or are you writing something custom for that?
We will be writing something custom. So, and to be honest, that's exactly why we mentioned it, because Microsoft already has a pretty good Synapse Sync. It's not a very high priority for us to build another one. So we recommend, if people need the Synapse Sync, then at the moment just use that, because that works pretty well.
That makes good sense. Oh, so this is fantastic. What other custom visuals do you have? So we've seen the visual, the line, we've seen the charts, we've seen the drill in. What other options are there inside this tooling?
So the one that's at the moment very popular is our financial reporting visual. It's called Acterys reporting. You saw it already before in what I showed you with the financial statement here.
Okay.
So this allows you to do the custom calculations. It allows you to do the IBCS visualizations, where you click here and it automatically switches to the different IBCS visualizations. It allows you to enter the comments. So here I just switch between relative, waterfall, display. I can edit everything here. And this is a bit of a big, we probably need a bit of a gong here now. We have introduced a completely new feature now for financial reporting, which for the first time we're presenting live on your show. We thought we had to do this in the appropriate place, and as your podcast is a great place to show this for the first time to the world. We have a new feature for data-driven styles in Acterys reporting. So I just quickly go to a different report for ESG, which is now a very current topic. So the environmental, societal, and governance reporting. So here you see the same visual. So you have the same options here to switch between the different displays. You can set up the columns. You have the option to drill up, drill down. You have the formatting as well, and this is not a crucial thing. So you see here, particularly in ESG reporting, you have metrics that vary dramatically. So here I have percentages, I have tons, I have liters, and I have absolute values. And this is, as we discussed before, not easy to realize in Power BI. And one option is now to do this all. Okay, here this is percentage, this is this is that. But that's not really what you want to do. So we are introducing a completely new feature, which is called styles. So as opposed to doing things directly in the visual, we believe that formatting should be defined centrally in the database. So I can go now directly to the database, either in the modeler that you saw before and do it from there, or directly in Power BI. So if I go here now to and this brings me to the next visual. So this is our table edit visual, which allows you to edit tables in a very effective way. So it's not just a modeler where you edit things. You can also do this directly in Power BI. So you see here, this is my product dimension with all the details. You have pictures here. I have dates here, status items, and so on. But the users can now immediately edit these things directly from here. So if I want to, have a different status item here, if I want to change the dates here, I've got date pickers. I have the free text options. I have the, the validations, and I can edit my tables directly from here. But what I can do now also here is I can edit the formatting. So if I go now to this ESG metrics table that contains my ESG metrics, I have now an option here for style. And here I can either choose predefined styles or define completely new styles. So that the number format, the font size, the color, whatever it is. So I choose now a different one here with a double underline. I save this for the fossil energy consumption in kilowatt hours. And if I go back to my report, we'll see that this gets immediately applied. So, and this is not just this one report, this is everywhere. As this is data-driven, it means every single visual, it doesn't matter on how many Power BI reports, the formatting will be applied correctly in one step. So I don't have to edit 58 visuals and put now the double underline in there. I can do it once in the database where, in our opinion, it should be. It should be data-driven in the central data model. And it's then automatically applied across the board everywhere where this metric is used.
Hang on 1 second here. Wow, just blown away by that. That's incredible.
Cool. Yeah, so this is really for the first time that we announced this. And again, so the way to configure this is you just take the dimensions. So this was my ESG metrics. This is the column where I had my style. You just drag and drop it into the visual. So for the data-driven style, and this will then automatically apply all the data-driven styles in the visual.
Wow, that's amazing. That's incredible, man. Martin, I'm blown away by that. I mean that makes so much of what we do so difficult. On the report side, how do you make these visuals all uniform and change all at once? But if you can control your formatting from the database level, then it doesn't matter about your front end pieces and stuff. Oh, that's exactly. Incredible. Well done. Oh, this is that. Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Whew. Oh, sorry. That was a lot to take in there. So that's great. And you said when will this be out? When will this be available for users?
It is already out there, so we have already the visual. It's not yet in the marketplace. So We've actually published this yesterday, and it takes Microsoft typically, a few days to get it out because they do all these tests to make sure everything works, it's secure, and so on. But it should be out in the next few days. And if you want to try it, I can provide you with a dev version. Where you can immediately use it.
Oh, I'd love to take a crack at this. That'd be great. Yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, wow. All right. What other visuals does Acterys have?
So we had a quick look at the table edit. We have also then a visual for project planning. So where is it? Project planning here. So this is a typical Gantt chart visual where you have, your project steps, you have hierarchies here, you have groups, you have start end dates, you have resources, you have progress scenarios. And so this is already a nice visualization, but the interesting thing here is that this is now completely right-enabled as well. So I can say I've got a new task here, meet with Chris, and that starts, at a particular point in time. So I've got a calendar visualization here. I want to assign some resources to that. And so I can edit now my task directly here. So this is another one for project planning where you can then edit all these things. Like, I can change the start and end dates. I can change the progress, typical things that you do in project management. So this is another one, the Gantt chart.
Can I link this to budgets so I can track my budget burn down from here?
So you get all these, you can configure all these items. So the task name, the start date, the end date, the progress, the resource assignments, the parent. But in the end, you have to take into account all this can be linked anyway. So you see here, we have linked two of them together. So this is our Gantt chart. This is our comment visual. So here you can see our user rights work. Here I'm not allowed to change the comments. But let me go to another one. Oops, where we can do this. So typically what happens is, so these visuals work together. So it's not like they're standalone components. We support all the Power BI features. So they filter out, they inherit filters, and they work together. So, for example, you have cost items and you want to break them down. So you have, marketing expenditure, and one option is to put in the value directly, or do your relative increases, adding data. You can also copy and paste the data if you have it somewhere else. The other option is to say, hey, I want to have more details here. So I want to break my marketing costs down into the Phoenix conference, the Atlantic trade show, and I want to have a new item. And then I can say, okay, for example, sponsor Chris's podcast. And then you put in the items here. So that will cost me a lot of money. And you see it also inherits automatically the filters. So whatever filters you have, it automatically populates those. You see the green ones, they are the ones that are changed. And then this will be automatically applied to the marketing budget. So I've put details in for my line item. And this can also work for workflows. So, you do your budgeting here. You're now finished. So I can submit this. And this will trigger now a workflow. So I've submitted this budget. Now my manager will get an email. Martin has finished his budget. This has taken away now my rights to edit this. So I can't change it anymore. My manager has gotten an email. This is Martin's budget. Are you happy with it? And then the manager can click on. So he looks at this screen and he then says, okay, I want to approve this or I want to reject it. If it's approved, it becomes part of the overall budget. So you can also have then visibility. So you can say, okay, up until it's in progress, no one should see it. But if it's approved, then it should form part of the overall budget. Or if they reject it, then it goes back to me and says, hey, Martin, you need to adjust your marketing spend and increase it by, 10%. And this will then automatically update again the numbers, and then the workflow starts again.
Wow. Now this is incredible. Now here's the big question. Now for me, as soon as I get this $9 million podcast sponsorship, I'm gonna be sitting pretty good with funds. So I'm sure I'll be able to afford this. But talk to me about the licensing and costs around what this tool would cost if I wanted to roll this out at my organization.
So it depends. We essentially have two products. One is our Acterys apps offering, which is the complete end-to-end solution. So these are the Acterys apps, which give you for a particular system what you saw before, everything: the data mart, the Power BI environments, the Excel templates. These are priced per company, and they start around $50 a month per company. But then this is, you get this particular model, and you can't change the model. This is the model that you get. If you want to edit the model, and if you want to have more advanced planning features, we have our enterprise offering, which is the Acterys XP&A suite.
Okay.
And this is based on a per user basis. So it depends on the type of user. And this ranges from, a few dollars to $100+, depending on the user type. So, for example, our admin user that includes, so the admin package that includes the database and so on, that will be in the higher range. Look, we are promoting your stream here. If you are a user that just wants to use a particular write-back visual, then it's in the few $10 a user a month.
Okay. I mean, like you said, compared to like a lot of the planning softwares that are out there that you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars every year on licensing, clearly this is a much more dynamic price model that can would scale and adjust to fit any organization. That does make sense to me. When it comes to like our back end storage, and I say, okay, hey, I've got at my day job, I've got a very large, data warehouse that I'd have to have a very large data mart for. I have a Azure spend budget. You said I'm able to link my backend data mart to my account, right? So that spend would come out of there, correct? We don't just funnel it through you, right? Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So we really want to give our users the flexibility. We don't want to force them into a particular model. So you have the option for tenant management directly in the modeler, where you can either point to your own Azure environment, or you can point even to your own physical SQL Server environment, and then all the operations would happen with that. So as I mentioned, so we have enterprise clients, extremely security conscious, like for example, US Department of Defense, US Department of Agriculture. They don't want anything cloud. They want to control everything. They have super high, encryption and access, right? And we spent, to be honest, the majority in the last year on security. So we've invested heavily in security to support these very demanding high security scenarios. And that obviously includes to use your own environment in the most secure way. So if you deploy the model application, or if you use the model application, a quick start model application where you can sign up in 2 minutes. If you want to use that in conjunction with your own database, then you can set up your private VPN so that the communication between the software service application and the database is as secure as it gets.
Well, that's fantastic. I presume you go through all of that in your quick start onboarding for a larger customer. If let's say I'm a smaller customer, because my day job, I work at a very large organization, and my night side hustle, it's just me at a desk and a keyboard, and I'm trying to get things up and going here. But I might add some people in. I might start having to do something like this. Do you offer a fully hosted solution for people, or is it something that, like you're going to have a hosted component yourselves?
No, that's the standard. Okay. So
okay.
If you sign up, let me just open up a new screen. I can show you exactly the process. So if you go to Acterys, you go through the onboarding where you just fill out a form, you just put in your name, and this will create everything automatically. So it will automatically create an Azure tenant, an Azure SQL tenant. It will get you the model environment. So initially, when you start, obviously that's empty. So you have no dimensions, no models, cubes. We call them cubes, but in the end it's a relational data mart like the Power BI data marts. So this is all empty. But then you have the option to use our predefined connectors. So then you'll get all this automatically. Or if you want to start from scratch, so if you're not using any of these systems, you have the option to use Power BI Sync, as I mentioned before. Let's say if you have it already in Power BI, you can do that. Or we have now a completely new environment, which is very similar to the data sets in Power BI, which we call Acterys Hub. So in the Acterys Hub, all the integration comes together. So you set up your connections. And so this could be now an existing Azure database, local SQL Server, Power BI, SharePoint, text files, Excel files, so wherever you have this data. So you set up the connection. And then you create the model component. So, I want to create a dimension. I want to load the data into a particular model. I want to schedule this so that it happens automatically at a particular point in time. So if you don't have any of these standard connectors, you can work completely generically and build your model exactly as you need it in a very simple fashion. So as you saw, you don't need to be an IT expert to create your dimension here. You just point, I want to have a new dimension load. You point to what's the source here that I want to use, and that will automatically load the dimension in the way you specify. So I can now point to whatever my source table is. If you want to use views, I can select just the columns that I want from these tables. You can set up calculated dimensions as well. So you see the blue ones here, they are linked to a source, so they will automatically update with this source. You can have a green one here that's a calculated one, where you have a calculation logic that defines the dimension. This can be quite exciting, for example, for translations. So you have a Google function here. Sorry, I shouldn't say Google. You have an Azure function here for the translation, and it automatically translates. Let's say you have your model in English. It automatically translates the column in German. So this is we call them logic-driven dimensions. So you have a logic there, for example, it applies the Azure translation service and automatically dynamically translate the element name. But this could be anything. Also, the interesting thing is classifications. So you want to classify, for example, you have a product dimension, you want to dynamically classify them into, what are A products, B products, you have, I don't know, calculations here. So you can build dimension structures that are logic-driven. So similar to our data-driven styles, you build hierarchies in a dynamic way, as opposed to a static way where you say, okay, I have account name, account group, and so on. You build these dimension structures in a dynamic way.
Wow. This looks like it's a total solution then. And then I could build out additional reports on top of this, whatever I want to have. I have complete control over that. Yes?
Exactly. And this could be, so we have the Excel add-in. So this is also it's an Excel online add-in. So this means it will run in the browser, it will run on Macs, where you have then on the same data model. So you have the same data model that you saw before. You define your reports in whatever way you want. This is obviously dynamic because this is a pivot table. But then you have the option to do your write back directly here on the pivot table. It all ends up in the same central data model. And if people want Excel, they can still use Excel as well, which you can also link to Power BI. So you can deploy the Excel sheet in the Excel browser, as this is a Excel Online add-in, and have it running side by side in Power BI.
Well, it sounds like I could just implement this and then find a different job then. This is fantastic, Martin. So we've got 2 minutes left of this live stream. I'll give it up to you. What else would you like the audience, the people who are watching this, to know before we cut out?
One area that we're focusing on a lot now is our CTO is a PhD in machine learning, is obviously artificial intelligence and machine learning, and there's some really exciting things coming. So we have what we would call simple stuff, where you have, forecasting algorithms, you have, exponential smoothing and regressions and, this kind of stuff that automatically, based on a history, where I can define, what's the historic periods that I want to include, what are the start end dates, and it will project into the future and write that back into the database. And the cool thing here is, again, we want to take this open approach, not force people into a particular environment that typically has limitations. But in the end, what you can do for these methods is we're just using R. So you set up your algorithm as you want it in R, and we then execute this R algorithm, or Python if you want to, and write back the results into the database. So that's one area, for machine learning. The other area that will soon come is constraint satisfaction planning. So you can specify constraints. So for example, I can produce that much. Let me just go to another one. I have that much capacity, but my demand is way higher. So if we look at a typical sale, we call this S&OP, sales and operations. And Power BI is really well suited for this. So I have now, this is our matrix visual. I can see, okay, what's the demand? And, what have my salespeople requested? And then what can I produce? So this is my operations team that tell me, okay, we can produce 3,800 of the road line and this much of that. And then I can immediately see, okay, they can produce 10,800, but my salespeople want 12,000. And then you can play around with scenarios. So you can say, okay, I have a few scenarios. If the container delays don't happen, so I can say, hey, I think we sorted these container delays. I can exclude them. This will automatically adjust the order quantity scenario and, give me at least a little bit reduced target, but then I have the option to optimize it. And this is now where the machine learning comes in, where I click this button and it will automatically adjust the order quantity of my salespeople into a new consensus scenario. So they had a forecast scenario, then we create a new one for consensus. We apply the optimizer, and it will automatically, based on the gross margin of the product, create the optimal production capacity that I can handle. So this just as a last thing. And then the final thing that we're doing is knowledge-based planning. So you have very experienced people in your organization that know, for example, this product at this particular time frame sells well. You add this as a rule into the central data model, and that rule gets then applied across the board in the organization to optimize outcomes. So we, for example, have retailers here that have 600 outlets. They know in this region, a particular public holiday, you want to put the beers in front of the store so that you sell more of them. And these rules, where we have human knowledge, gets then spread out to the entire organization, and then also with the machine learning algorithms optimized. So you see, okay, this has really worked or has not worked, and I need to improve it that way. So it becomes better and better over time.
Well, Martin, this is absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to hop on this live stream and show everyone how this is set up. I'm going to be reaching out to you at my work account, looking for a quote on some of this stuff. I need more information. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you, or a hold of a sales rep or a VAR, or how can they get a hold of this so that they can start to implement this inside their organizations?
So yeah, it's super simple. Just go to acterys.com, click on Start Trial. That will give you a form, and then based on where you are, what you're interested in, you will be automatically put in contact with either our partner, one of our partners, or with our own customer success teams that will help you to, on the one hand, set up a trial. So we offer free trials as well, but typically with an onboarding process, we want to make sure that people have a good experience. So we help them free of charge initially. In many cases as well, it depends on how complex your requirements are. And help you to get started, try it out, and hopefully, see some of the benefits that it's supposed to bring.
Wow, this is fantastic. Martin, thank you again so much for your time to today, joining us and hopping on this live stream. Thank you, everyone who hopped on and joined us for this. I hope you found this nearly as helpful as I found it. Powell, Andrew, Don, look for an email for me tomorrow on this subject. We're going to be talking about this in an upcoming meeting. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a great day. And as always, peace.
Thank you very much for having me, everyone. Great to meet everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.